On this episode of Air Capital Hot Rod Garage, I'm going to show you how to install a wideband oxygen sensor on the Chevelle. Reading and watching about the tuning, it has oxygen sensors from the factory, one on either side. Since I don't have cats, I don't have the real ones. And they're narrow band, so that means that they're tuned or designed to read at stoichiometric air-fuel ratio, 14.7 to 1. It's great for tuning. They're not so great. So, over here on my 68, I have a wideband hooked up. So, I'm actually going to pull the wideband off of this and put it on there. So, actually, I have this wideband on my Corvette, and I actually used it for tuning the Corvette at the racetrack. Sold the Corvette a long time ago and put it on here, and never took the effort to tune with it. So, I don't really like tuning that much. It's tedious. And this is a relatively stock engine, and so the tune's fine on it. With this having a cam, it's not so stock, so almost it requires tuning. So that's why I'm going to go with the wideband O2 sensor. So I'm going to take that off there and wire it up in here. Now, question is, okay, you get a wideband, how do you get that information out of it? I have the HPtuner non-pro version, I think they call it, the regular version. So it doesn't have the little plugins on the side of the module where you could plug in a oxygen sensor. I might be able to plug it into the serial port on my computer. I don't know. What I'm going to do, or hope to do, is, so this engine originally had EGR on it. So one of the EGR, I think the EGR position sensor wire coming back to the ECM is a 0 to 5 volt signal that it's getting from the EGR. So I left that wire undone somewhere, and I'm going to put the output of my wideband oxygen sensor to that wire, and then I'll be able to read that output via HPtuner, and then I can write a custom equation to equate that to lambda or air-fuel ratio. I'm just learning about lambda, or I've heard of it, but learning the benefits of tuning in lambda. So that's what we're going to try to do. So I got to get it off of here, and honestly, I don't even remember which header I put it in. It's been so long since I put it in there. So, all right. So here on the 68 pickup, you can see here's kind of some of the cables that go to that oxygen sensor, and there's a little switch here. It changes modes or something, and indicator light. So then this is wired into my well, it has a connector here, and then it's wired into the fuse block, and then I think some of these wires go to the ECM. So, and then there's a box that controls it all somewhere, and then of course the oxygen sensor itself. So it's going to be a little bit of work. Man, this thing's dirty. It's dirty. Look at that. Trailblazer SS intake manifold. Alright, time to get to work. Well, guys, I got the wideband oxygen sensor wired up. So go over here. The passenger side header is way more open and easier to get to. So this is an innovative LC-1 wideband. So it's going to go down on the collector down there. So got that bundled up right there. Runs over there. And then wired into pin 55 on the blue connector, the EGR position signal. So that's where the output from wideband goes to. Got it wired into a switched power source. Couple of ground wires here. And then, so there's the indicator light and then the switch. And I might mount this on my fuse block, or in my fuse block here, so all you will see is just the light and the button sticking out of it. So a little bit cleaner install. So I gotta cover up some more wires again. So, but yeah, not too bad of an install, really. Just a couple ground wires and signal wire and power wire. So I got a oxygen sensor bung coming to weld into that header, and then I also got a plug to put into the truck to plug that hole in that one. So here in a couple days, and then like I said, have to get into HPtuner and do a little magic on the scanner side to get an output from that actually makes sense. So, and then also here, let me show you this. Hopefully. So there's my dash with gauges on it. So that's torque running, and so I got my fuel gauge over here, obviously, and these other gauges and blah blah blah. And so this has a tack on it, but it reacts pretty slow. But I still got a tack down there. Still got my oil pressure gauge down there. The temperature gauge not plugged in, so I have a temperature gauge here, and then I can add in a wideband gauge. And you know, you can configure this however you want. And I got the key horsepower meter here, which you know, has an accelerometer from the tablet, and then you enter in the car weight and everything, and that's how it calculates that. So right now, my USB cable here that powers this, I've just been plugging it into the stereo. Eventually, I was thinking about making a 3D printed kind of housing for this, and then wiring it, kind of a hardwired power into the car with a switched source. And then I think there's a way you can set this up so that it turns on and off when it's charging, aka powers on, and it'll automatically launch in Torque app. And then I got this module from Amazon, BAFX products, that gives it a Bluetooth signal that this is picking up. So I had another one of these, I mean, similar idea, and it was kind of finicky connecting and stuff. So this one seems to connect pretty quickly and reliably. Of course, I've had it for just a short period of time, so to be determined how good this really is. So that's it for tonight. Waiting for some oxygen sensor bungs, and then we'll be able to do some tuning. Like I said, we're going to learn how to put in an oxygen sensor, and usually you put this into your header or maybe into the rest of the exhaust pipe, kind of depending on if you have headers or not. This doesn't just apply to our LS Chevelle that we're working on, so it really can apply to any vehicle that you need to put in an oxygen sensor. So if you have a carbureted engine, for example, but you still wanted a wideband oxygen sensor, this still applies. So that's kind of breaking it out from the actual project. So it's just general. Also, if you have a fuel injected engine, like an LS engine, and you get headers, usually they have oxygen sensor bungs welded in them already. But since we're going to add a wideband oxygen sensor, we need to add the oxygen sensor bung. So we got the header up here on the workbench, and as you can see right here, I marked where my oxygen sensor needs to go. I did this underneath the car, that way I made sure I have plenty of clearance for that oxygen sensor. So that's the first step, is figuring out where to put that oxygen sensor. And then on this particular oxygen sensor bung, it has a step here. So what we want to do is drill a hole large enough that basically sits on this step. So that's what we're going to do. So our first step is to drill a hole right here. So I'm going to use this tool, automatic center punch, to make that dent that I can drill through. And I use a small drill bit to start off with. Alright, so what we're going to do here is measure how big that smaller step is, and it's 0.86 inches. Then we're going to take our step drill bit here and find the drill bit that is that size. This goes up to 3/4 of an inch, so not 0.8. Alright, this one goes up to that size, so I got to go all the way through this step drill bit. Alright, and I like to use a little bit of WD-40 when I'm drilling out big stuff like this to help kind of cool and lubricate that drill bit. Now we're going to weld that on there. Alright, so there's my hole. There's my bung. Just fits down in there. And you probably want to, it kind of rocks back and forth, so you kind of wanted to get it in the middle so that oxygen sensor is kind of pointed straight towards the middle of the collector here. So, but really it sits in there pretty much. So now it's just a matter of welding it in. So that's really pretty much all there is to installing an oxygen sensor bung. You just drill the hole using the step bits, pretty easy, and then weld that bung in there. And then that oxygen sensor should be slide right in. Alright, now that we got our wideband oxygen sensor hooked up to the electronically wired into the computer, now I'm going to show you how to get those that information into HPtuner. So remember, that was on the EGR position sensor. So the first thing that I'll kind of walk you through is you go down here to math parameters, and what we're going to do is do maths user and then lambda. So what you have to do here is you have to find the variable for what you wired into. I'll delete this so you can kind of see. So you click new variable, and click parameter, and then we're going to type EGR because we know we wired into the EGR. Okay, and what you're looking for over here is one that's voltage, because that's what that position sensor is returning back to the computer, is a 0 to 5 volt signal. So those are all ratios. Come down here, EGR sensor, voltage. So I think that's the one that we're going to go with. There was a couple others. EGR, orifice temperature, voltage. But since I already had this working, it was EGR sensor. So if you were using another input, maybe your AC pressure voltage or sensor voltage, you would find that too. Just depending on what vehicle you have, what modifications you've done, and everything. So this is a 2001, so it had EGR on it. I'm not using EGR, so that's why I'm using this one. So double click on that. Okay, and then what you got to do is you got to read through your manual for your wideband oxygen sensor and figure out the rest of the equation here. So what I did is I read through it, through my manual. So it said at 0 volts, the wideband reads 7.35 air-fuel ratio, and at 5, it's 22.39. Then I did a little bit of math, which lambda is air-fuel ratio divided by 14.7 for gasoline, and came up with these two values. So I have two different curves here. Blue one's for air-fuel ratio, and the bottom one is for lambda. Now, once you plot these, you can right-click on them, format trend line. You want it as a line, and then you can display equation on the chart, and right there's your equation. So I was looking at lambda here. So that's saying 0.2046 times x, which x is our voltage from 0 to 5 here, plus 0.5. So that's the exact same equation that I have, or should be. Yep, I accidentally deleted off 0.2, or point, a decimal place. Alright, and so for the air-fuel ratio, I have the same the equation from that spreadsheet. So that's how you do your math functions, and then you need to add a channel for the EGR sensor, and then histograms here. So you right-click, graph layout. You would hit the plus button to add a graph, a histogram, lambda. So you click on parameter here, and then you can select your parameter. I've already selected the lambda F user. And then what I'm graphing it against is engine speed, and then the map sensor. I copied all these values for the table out of the VE table in HPtuner editor. Airflow primary. So if you didn't know this, you can right click on these and copy axis. So column axis labels or row axis labels. You can copy both of those individually and then paste them in this table rather than trying to go back and forth and type each one in. And then obviously you select engine RPM and map or whatever else you want to do there. So for actual PE tuning, we'd probably want to do lambda versus commanded lambda, or air-fuel ratio versus air-fuel ratio divided by commanded air-fuel ratio. But I'm just kind of showing you how to set this up. So, and then you can come down here if you want to gauge like this. You can gauge layout, do the plus button there, I got air-fuel ratio. So again, I selected the parameter for air-fuel ratio math user, set up 20 to 7 as my minimum maximum, and then I have it turn in red if it's above 15 to 20, and then below 12. So, and then use these values over here to move it around on the screen. So, all right, and then we'll go ahead and test it out. So I'll start up the car. Alright, and with my wideband, it has to heat up before it starts working. So you'll see here, when it gets going here, see that EGR sensor value is 0, or 0.02. Now it clicks on when that gets hot enough. So air-fuel ratio, and then obviously it's populating table here. Oh, and then I did go ahead and change this out here. So as you can see, I'm getting data from my wideband through my ECM into HPtuner so that I can log this, so I can tune with HPtuner using the wideband. So, like I said, I just got this going, so I need a little bit of work on my tuning. And but this is how I'm going to do it. So, hopefully this is helpful. If you got some value out of this or want to see more of the build, check out the rest of the channel, like, subscribe, and ring the bell.